It's 7 p.m. Monday, July 8th, here in Seoul.
Coming up on NewsCenter tonight. President Moon Jae-in urges Japan to withdraw its recent trade restrictions against Korea, calling for a return to free trade and talks. He also vows to help Korean firms minimize the damage.
Seoul's Trade Ministry says it's arranging bilateral talks with Tokyo to discuss the export curbs. Japan's ambassador to South Korea, meanwhile, claims that trust has been lost between both nations while trying to settle historical disputes.
Korean lawmakers grill prosecutor-general nominee Yoon Sung-yeol on his views on prosecutorial reform. The heated confirmation hearing sees lawmakers clash over his credentials.
And the U.S. warns Iran of more sanctions if Tehran goes ahead with its threat of exceeding the agreed threshold for uranium enrichment under the Iran nuclear deal. NewsCenter begins now. Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Noaram.
And I'm Han-daeun. Thanks for joining us. President Moon has called on Japan to drop its new trade restrictions against Korea in his first public remarks on the matter. He stressed the need to settle the dispute through negotiations.
The president also said he will spare no effort to support Korean companies that'll be affected. We begin with our Park Ki-jun, who is at the top office for us tonight.
President Moon Jae-in has demanded that Japan calls off its latest trade restrictions in his first public remarks since the announcement of the export curbs.
일본 측의 조치 철회와 양국 간의 성의 있는 협의를 촉구합니다. 무역은 공동 번영의 도구여야 한다는 국제사회의 믿음과 일본이 늘 주창해온 자유무역의 원칙으로 되돌아가기를 바랍니다.
President Moon's meeting with his top aides on Monday comes at a time of troubled bilateral relations stemming from Japan's new set of export controls on key materials bound for South Korea for making chips and smartphone displays. President Moon said he will try to resolve the dispute calmly in a diplomatic manner, but he made it clear that he will not stand back while Korean companies suffer the consequences. He promised to draw up short-term solutions to minimize the damage while working to remove the deep-rooted structural economic vulnerabilities in the long term.
전례 없는 비상황 상황에 무엇보다 중요한 것은 정부와 경제계가 긴밀하게 소통하고 협력하는 것입니다. 청와대와 관련 부처 모두가 나서 상황 변화에 따른 해당 기업들의 애로를 직접 듣고 해결 방안을 함께 논의하며 필요한 지원을 아끼지 말아야 할 것입니다.
And to do that, President Moon is planning a meeting with the executives of 30 major South Korean companies on Wednesday. Taking the lead in dealing with the issue, the president is expected to exchange ideas on possible solutions. And learning from the bilateral trade dispute, President Moon says he will use this lesson to solve the structural issues in the Korean economy. He emphasized on the need to improve the quality of Korean-made components, which should lessen South Korea's dependence on imports. Park Ki-jun, Arirang News.
Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi also called on Tokyo to lift its export curbs on Korea, saying that the measures would negatively affect the global supply chain and damage the global economy. Our Kim Hae-sung reports.
At a meeting with economy-related ministers on Monday, Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi again urged Japan to scrap export tech-related curbs on South Korea.
Japan's export restriction measures run counter to the principles of the WTO agreement. The measures will not only negatively affect South Korean companies, but are also a concern for Japanese companies and the whole global economy.
His repeated calls for Tokyo to lift the export restrictions come after Japan's restrictions on exporting high-tech materials, namely fluorine polyamide photoresistant etching gas to South Korea, went into effect last Thursday. Korean companies use the three materials to produce chips and display panels, which are used to supply other global companies like Apple and Sony, meaning Japan's export restrictions could have a ripple effect through the whole global supply chain. Minister Hong said the government will work closely with Korean companies to minimize losses and work with other countries in the global community, adding that the APEC summit and IMF annual meeting are scheduled for the latter half of this year. At the meeting, he also identified the U.S.-China trade spat and Brexit as key external risks and vowed to keep monitoring developments, adding that while U.S.-China trade tensions have eased with the two sides agreeing to resume trade negotiations, uncertainty and its effect on the high-tech industry remains high. In addition, he said South Korea is working on diversifying its trading partners, including establishing a bilateral free trade agreement with Malaysia, and will also help local companies win more overseas infrastructure projects. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Japan, meanwhile, has shown its willingness to talk about the trade restrictions, according to South Korean government officials just a few hours ago. The two sides are now reportedly arranging the time and place of their bilateral meeting. This while Japanese officials are echoing Prime Minister Abe's claim that South Korea has lost Japan's trust. Our Kim Da-mi has more on that.
South Korea and Japan are planning a bilateral meeting to discuss the trade restrictions. South Korea's Trade Ministry said Monday that Japan last week showed a willingness to talk, just not now. Details, though, such as the date, who will attend, and the agenda are still under discussion. Meanwhile, Japanese officials are blaming what they call a loss of trust as the cause of the export restrictions. The Japanese ambassador to South Korea, Yasumasa Nagamine, met for an hour Monday with the chairman of the National Assembly's Foreign Affairs Committee, Yoon Sang-yeon. He told Yoon that trust was damaged by Seoul's unresponsiveness since last October to Japan's request for diplomatic talks and to Japan's request for an arbitration committee to handle the historical issue of forced labor. That's the dispute over Japanese companies forcing Koreans to work for them during World War II. But the ambassador said it's about more than that. It's about a political issue that needs to be solved through political means. The South Korean lawmaker Yoon commented to reporters that what might bring Japan to the table is better proposals. If Seoul doesn't change course, Japanese broadcaster NHK reports that Tokyo is considering even more export restrictions, this time on machine tools and carbon fiber. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea has dismissed Japan's claim that some of its exports may have gone to North Korea for the purpose of developing weapons. Seoul stressed that it is fully abiding by international sanctions against Pyongyang. Kan Young-woo reports.
Seoul's foreign ministry is dismissing claims by a high-ranking Japanese official that certain materials exported to South Korea may have gone to North Korea. According to a foreign ministry official on Monday, the South Korean government is thoroughly following the rules of the 4 multilateral export control regimes, which aim to prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, along with their related equipment and technology. The ministry added that Seoul is faithfully implementing the UN Security Council resolutions on North Korea while closely coordinating with the international community. Seoul's statement came a day after Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said on local TV that it's clear Seoul is not keeping its international agreement with Tokyo over the issue of wartime forced labor, so it's reasonable to think that South Korea is not complying with trade restrictions against North Korea. Abe was referring to the decision by Seoul's Supreme Court last year, ordering Japanese firms to compensate South Koreans forced into hard labor during wartime, against which Tokyo has strongly protested. Abe's close aide and the acting Secretary-General of Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, Goichi Hagiwara, also said last week that the final destination of certain chemical materials exported to South Korea was unknown and raised concerns that such exports, which can be used to develop military weapons, may go to North Korea. Referring to the claim made by Hagiwara, South Korea's foreign ministry made it clear that the Japanese official needs to back up such accusations with detailed proof. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News.
Now, analysts are saying that Japan's new measures will end up hurting Korean tech giants like Samsung and LG and could in turn damage the overall Korean economy. Our Ko Ryun-hee explains.
Some of Korea's IT industry sources say firms aren't immediately feeling the impact of Tokyo's export restrictions on materials needed to make chips and displays. That's mainly because Korean firms have stockpiles of the materials. However, many analysts say the restrictions will hurt Korean firms in the long run, citing Korea's dependence on chip material imports from Japan. The tighter export curbs target three materials. For photoresist or light-sensitive materials that are used in chip manufacturing, more than 90% of Korea's total imports come from Japan. For fluorinated polyamides, used for making displays using Samsung and LG smartphones, the figure was almost 94%. An economic expert explained the reason behind the high share.
The quality of items that Korea imports from Japan is very high. Because Korea's chip and Japan's high-tech material sectors rely on each other, it's difficult for us to find other markets aside from Japan. It will take a long time for other countries, like those in Europe, to catch up to Japanese technology.
Experts say that Japan's move might not only hurt the nation's economy, which relies on chip exports, but it also may possibly affect the global chip industry in the long run, considering that Korean tech giants were among global semiconductor sales leaders in the first quarter of this year. Now, all eyes are on how the two countries' governments are handling the matter. Government officials are considering all necessary countermeasures, including taking the matter to the World Trade Organization, where the dispute settling process is expected to take around 2 to 3 years. Korea's trade minister said earlier that Japan's move goes against the norms of the WTO, whereas Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe argued the opposite, claiming it is a national security issue. A local expert explained the reason behind Seoul's announcement.
The WTO forbids members from imposing export restrictions aside from tariff measures, but there are cases when restrictions are allowed. One is when the country applying the measures is facing a shortage of raw materials. The other is when the country's national security is being threatened. However, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is not explaining the reason when mentioning the national security issue.
Experts emphasize that the two sides must avoid economic tit for tat, as this could cause even more harm to both their economies. 고르니, Arirang News.
Global ratings agency Moody's Investors Service has kept South Korea's rating at AA2 with a stable rating outlook. The agency said Korea's economic and fiscal fundamentals remain strong despite continued geopolitical risks. It noted that the country's reliance on international trade could pose problems in the near future, but added that it still has a highly diversified and competitive economy compared to other countries in the same rating group. Korea has been maintaining a AA2 rating, the third highest level on Moody's rating system since 2015. And to local politics now, South Korea's National Assembly held a confirmation hearing today for Yoon Suk-yeol, President Moon Jae-in's pick for prosecutor-general. Closely under the microscope were Yoon's views on prosecutorial reform. He said he's not opposed to key reform bills that are sitting at Parliament. Kim Min-ji with more.
Yoon Suk-yeol, President Moon Jae-in's pick for prosecutor-general, vowed to carry out sweeping reforms while stressing the importance of political neutrality. He was speaking Monday at his confirmation hearing.
Prosecutors have been swayed by politics, and that I regret. I will overhaul the organization, system, and culture of the prosecution, considering what's best for the people. I also promise to maintain political neutrality.
When asked about his views on balancing the investigative powers of the prosecution and the police, he said that prosecutors should keep their right to control cases. But he said there could be fewer investigations directly carried out by them over time.
Controlling investigations at the end of the day means communication between prosecution and police. The important thing is how we can cooperate and not who carries out the probes. For the country as a whole, if we could strengthen our ability to fight corruption and irregularities, then I don't think prosecutors would have to do the investigations. For now, I think there is a degree to which we can reduce the amount they handle.
Yoon's views are slightly out of line with the government's plans to give police the authority to investigate as well as close cases and eventually do away with the prosecution's role of oversight. Currently, the prosecution has the power to control, open, and end investigations, as well as the exclusive right to indict. Yoon said that he's not opposed to another key reform bill either, one which calls for the creation of an independent body that will probe irregularities committed by high-ranking officials. Yoon's nomination is being seen as a show of the Moon Jae-in administration's determination to continue its reform drive. He is a reform-minded veteran who currently heads the Seoul-centric district prosecutor's office and has major cases under his belt, including the power abuse scandal involving ousted former President Park Geun-hye. At the hearing, the ruling Democratic Party claimed Yoon is fit for the job, saying he is known for sticking to principles even under external pressure. However, opposition parties raised concerns over ethical matters, such as a suspected fraud case involving a family member and Yoon allegedly meddling in a bribery case involving a former tax agency official.
The prosecutor-general position requires a confirmation hearing, but it doesn't require parliamentary approval. The president is expected to go ahead with the appointment after rival parties adopt a hearing report. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jongun has visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun to pay tribute to his grandfather Kim Il-sung. Today marks 25 years since the death of the North Korean founder. The North State media showed key aides, including Choi Ryong-hae, the head of the North Korean Parliament's Presidium, and Kim Jae-ryong, the Premier of North Korea, accompanying the young leader. Kumsusan Palace of the Sun is where the embalmed bodies of Kim Il-sung and the previous leader Kim Jong-il lie in state. Pyongyang State TV also showed North Korean citizens commemorating Kim Il-sung's death with a 3-minute silence at noon local time. Top US nuclear envoy Stephen Biegun and his South Korean counterparts are expected to meet in Europe this week. This is seen as a chance for the two sides to coordinate before the US resumes its working-level talks with North Korea. Kim Yo-sun with the details.
Stephen Biegun, Washington's point man on North Korea, will travel to Europe Monday for talks with his South Korean counterpart and European officials on measures to achieve Pyongyang's final, fully verified denuclearization. The U.S. State Department explained that Biegun's 4-day visit to Brussels and Berlin is aimed at advancing Washington's shared efforts to bring about the regime's FFVD. Seoul's Foreign Ministry says Lee Do-hoon, Seoul's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, will visit Germany this week to hold meetings with Biegun and German officials. There are high hopes for the meetings as they follow the announcement of the resumption of Pyongyang-Washington working-level talks by U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un when they had a hastily arranged encounter at the DMZ late last month. The focus is on whether the talks could lead to another summit between Kim and Trump. The officials are expected to discuss details of Washington's corresponding measures to Pyongyang, including humanitarian aid and the establishment of a liaison office. It's left to be seen whether they will also touch upon the issue of resuming the Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex and Mount Kumgang Tourism Project. Some analysts also predict Biegun could meet with North Korean officials in Europe. Ahead of the second North Korea-U.S. summit in Hanoi, Biegun held a series of meetings in Sweden with the North's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee in January. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
South Korea's Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun has called on government agencies to prepare thoroughly so that there are no safety or security concerns when Korea hosts upcoming international events. He was speaking at the 9th National Counter-Terrorism Committee meeting earlier today.
In 4 days, the 2019 FINA World Championships will begin in Gwangju, and in Busan in November, the Korea-ASEAN Special Summit will take place. I hope all related organizations do their best to maintain perfect security for these two events.
He added that there are still many terrorist movements around the globe, citing a South Korean national who was recently caught while trying to join the ISIS. He expressed his gratitude towards other countries, including the United Arab Emirates, for rescuing a South Korean national who returned home in May after being kidnapped in Libya. South Korea's police chief Min Kap-yong has expressed regrets over an assault on a Vietnamese woman by her Korean husband last week and promised a thorough investigation. Min met the Vietnamese Minister of Public Security in Seoul earlier today and said he hopes the incident does not hamper ties between the two countries. In a video that went viral, the man was seen beating his wife in front of their 2-year-old son for not speaking Korean well. He is now under arrest. Now to the latest on U.S.-Iran tensions. What remains of the Iran nuclear deal is now on life support, as Iran has declared it will enrich uranium at higher level. The UN Nuclear Agency has announced it'll convene an emergency meeting on the deal on the deal this week. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the latest.
The U.S. strongly denounced Iran's move to start enriching uranium beyond the limit set in a 2015 nuclear deal. U.S. President Donald Trump, on his way back to Washington from New Jersey to reporters on Sunday, said the U.S. will continue to impose maximum pressure on Iran unless the nation stops developing nuclear weapons. President Trump withdrew from the 2015 deal, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, a nuclear multilateral accord intended to limit Iran's civilian nuclear program and prevent it from developing nuclear weapons, and reintroduced economic sanctions on Iran last year.
Iran better be careful, because you enrich for one reason, and I won't tell you what that reason is, but it's no good. They better be careful.
The warning comes on the heels of senior Iranian officials stating that Tehran will reduce its commitments incrementally every 60 days by passing the 3.67% uranium enrichment cap set in the deal, unless other signatories of the pact, namely the UK, Germany, France, Russia, and China, protect Iran from U.S. sanctions. Under the announcement, Iran's government spokesperson Ali Rafieh said in a tweet that increasing the level of enrichment is in line with Tehran's needs for economic development and is of a deeply peaceful nature. Under the 2015 deal, Iran had agreed to reduce the number of nuclear centrifuges by 2/3 and slash its stockpile of uranium by 98% in return for a lifting of economic sanctions. A spokesperson from the International Atomic Energy Agency said it'll hold an emergency meeting this Wednesday to discuss Iran's nuclear program following a request by the U.S. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Countries around the world are racing to develop a supercomputer based on quantum physics. South Korean researchers are on the edge of developing innovative ways to turn this technology from theory to reality. Our Oh Soo-young has the story.
South Korean researchers are working on the building blocks of supercomputing networks that are hundreds of thousands of times faster and more secure than present-day technology. Quantum computing researchers at Korea Institute of Science and Technology have developed ways to use diamond structures to generate qubits. Normal computers store and send data in binary form as either ones or zeros. However, quantum computers use qubits, which can exist as a 1 and a 0 at the same time, in what's called a state of superposition. As both possibilities exist, this increases the amount of data the computer can store or process, meaning it can run through all possible outcomes at once. However, it's not just the number of qubits that matter. As they're largely volatile, keeping them isolated and in a workable state is one of the biggest hurdles in quantum computing.
We use spin qubits to develop our system. The advantage of using nitrogen vacancy color centers in diamonds to make qubits allows them to work better at room temperature, and there is also good connectivity with photons. We can also incorporate semiconductor processes to produce qubits.
Scientists around the world are working to obtain the quantum advantage, or reach the point where quantum computers can significantly beat traditional computers at solving complex problems. Most expect this would require at least 50 to 100 stable qubits. Quantum cryptography is another promising field, being the closest commercial application of quantum technology. From using secured Wi-Fi to controlling power grids, encrypted networks are vital to security on individual, business, and national levels. Using the quantum principles of physics could help make networks unhackable. A secret key is distributed between two parties and cannot be intercepted without collapsing.
Traditional networks are secured with mathematical problems or encryption, which can be resolved and thus hacked. But by using random values and the BB84 protocol, we can check error rates to detect hacking attempts. While quantum network equipment has mostly enabled data centers to connect with a single receiver or client, we have successfully tested a system with multiple receivers.
Han's team aims to develop this multiple receiver system and make the equipment smaller while increasing the distance of data transfers. Korea's Science Ministry aims to invest more than $37 million over the next 5 years to develop a 5-qubit quantum computer and a 100-qubit machine by 2027. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
A South Korean Catholic priest has been appointed to head the Vatican's diplomatic missions to Liberia. Father Jung will be serving at the Apostolic Nunciature in Monrovia. This will be Father Jung's first post after having completed his diplomatic training. He is the third Korean priest to be designated a nuncio, a Vatican term for a diplomatic representative. Seoul's palaces and shrines saw more than 5 million visitors in the first half of this year, an on-year increase of over 26%. This is the second time the number of visitors has exceeded the 5 million mark and is also the first time that free ticket holders have exceeded paying visitors. The number of Chinese visitors was also significantly higher, increasing by a whopping 125% compared to last year. South Korea's foreign ministry is holding an event to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the country's first government. For 10 days, young Koreans will visit 5 Chinese cities, including Shanghai, where Korea's provisional government was set up. The government in exile was established by Korean independence fighters during Japan's colonial rule. The government is warning the public about diseases carried by ticks as more people spend time outdoors during the summer. Korea CDC says there have been 46 cases this year of severe fever with what is known as SFTS, which has resulted in 11 deaths. Symptoms include fever, nausea, vomiting and diarrhea. People are also being advised to wear long-sleeve shirts and long pants when outdoors. It also helps to use insect repellent and to take a shower and change clothes after spending time outside. That has been your 3-minute news flash. It's now time to look at Arirang's digital media content.
And today we have another episode of When in Korea or Wink with Justin.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Wink When in Korea. I'm your host, Justin. And as you can see, we have another very special guest today with me. He's a very good friend of mine. You want to introduce yourself?
My name is Ibrahim. I model in Korea, and I've been here for 7 years.
We're going to have some delicious Korean beef. Yo, so in Korea, you know how at a lot of restaurants you cook your own meat? How do you feel about that? Because they don't do that at other restaurants usually, right? In other countries, it comes out it's fully cooked. They don't hand you raw meat like a barbecue.
I actually like that a lot because I feel more comfortable. I can cook it my own way. I can make it either like well done or rare, medium rare, anything like that.
So this is like medium rare. It's not too rare.
Oh, you put some salt in there?
I got some salt on it. There you go.
Tastes really good.
Yeah, I'm not exaggerating. Yo, it's melting. Right, so in Korea, another popular thing at meat restaurants is something called a sam, and that is a wrap. So you could take either one. This is a 깻잎 or sesame leaf, and this is lettuce. So you get to take either or you can take both of them. And I'm gonna make a little wrap for my bro Ibrahim. I'll put in 2 for you. 2 pieces of meat, and we're also gonna add some garlic too. And for the garlic, you like garlic, right?
Yeah.
You don't mind? Put some of the samjang, which is the wrap sauce. I'm gonna feed you like a choo-choo train. I'm gonna feed you. Open wide, buddy. Choo-choo. There you go. Good boy. There you go. You like my wrap? Yeah? You're welcome.
Not because it's your wrap. Just because it's good. Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so we ordered you some naengmyeon, because this is actually, you eat it kind of like a dessert or a post-meal. Have you tried this before?
Yeah, I've tried it like 2 times.
You like it?
Actually, I didn't really like it. I didn't vibe with it that well. So.
Oh, you don't like naengmyeon? Okay. Have you tried it with meat though? Like at the same time?
No, I've never tried that.
See, there you go. Grab some noodles and then, I'll come and point, yeah. And then Good.
Actually, jeez. All right, here you go.
How good is that? Yeah? That's good, right?
Bro, it's actually really good.
It's actually really good.
I'm not joking right now. This is really good, bro.
Yeah?
With the meat.
It was another sizzling day here in the capital, but it seems like rain is in stores for later tonight.
Let's get more on the weather from our Michelle Park, who is at the Weather Center for us. Michelle.
Good evening, guys. Now, the scorching heat has contributed to unstable atmospheric conditions, leading to rain clouds to form. And we should see precipitation between 5 to 20 millimeters, mostly up until 9 p.m., accompanied by some loud thunder and lightning at times, too. And it looks like Northeast Asian countries will be overcast with sporadic showers to drench southern regions tomorrow. And meanwhile, the central region of the nation will continue to be under heat waves, with the mercury soaring above 30 degrees mark during the day. And as to the start of our day, we will mostly likely to kick off Tuesday to 18 to 22 degrees Celsius tomorrow, with Seoul kicking off to 20 degrees. The capital will need to bear another hot day with a daily high climbing up to 33 degrees and Chuncheon at 32, while Busan and Jeju are windy and also very cool at 26 and 25 degrees respectively. And backed up monsoon front will influence heavier rain starting Wednesday, finally cooling off Seoul, and hot temperatures will be back on Friday, but conditions will stay bearable for the time being. I'll leave you with weather conditions around the world.
That will wrap it up for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you, as always, for watching.
News in depth is next, so stay tuned.